Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Spurs Pursuit. I'm your host Martin Frank, and today we'll be reviewing the most likely candidates that could replace Igor Tudor come next week. And there will be multiple candidates, so we will be going from the most likely to the least likely as the video goes on. Right, before we do that, Igor Tudor's appointment has been left questioned, even by the own board who appointed him, realising they've probably made the worst possible decision. Because sacking Thomas Frank in February allowed Tottenham Hotspur plenty of time to run away from the relegation battle. Unfortunately, Tottenham Hotspur, since the departure of Thomas Frank, have yet to win a Premier League game of football, meaning the gap has gone from 7 points when Thomas Frank was sacked to just 1 point heading into Anfield. And, what does that mean coming in? Well, this means that next week on the 22nd of March, Tottenham Hotspur will hope and pray to at least galvanise a point and avoid defeat against Nottingham Forest. Because if Nottingham Forest beat Tottenham Hotspur next week, they will be so gone. And yes, after Nottingham Forest, Tottenham Hotspur do not play for 3 weeks. That is 21 days that Tottenham Hotspur will not play a game of football, meaning Destiny Udogie and Mohamed Kudus most likely come back. But could it be far too late for such a change to happen? Another interesting fact, if you would like, not really what Tottenham fans want to hear, but this could be the reality come Sunday. If Tottenham Hotspur failed to win once again, which they have failed to do at Anfield for the past 15 years, and somehow Nottingham Forest and West Ham United win, Tottenham Hotspur will find themselves in the relegation zone this week. Now, it looks more than unlikely because West Ham United take on Manchester City, and Nottingham Forest have also struggled for form, and they take on Fulham at home. However, do we see both results going against Tottenham Hotspur this weekend? Probably not. So Tottenham Hotspur have a sort of, lucky charm right now that West Ham United have got very tough fixtures ahead of them. However, the pressure is growing and growing, and this is a huge issue. So Tottenham Hotspur, again, find themselves approaching another crossroads in what has been such a chaotic and painful season already. Igor Tudor's position is already hanging by a thread, and the club most likely will be forced to appoint a third manager of this campaign, the first time since not that long ago, 3 years ago, where Tottenham Hotspur had Antonio Conte, Christian Stellini and Ryan Mason. Who will be Tottenham Hotspur's third manager unless Igor Tudor magically turns the season around, which he has shown no signs of doing. No signs of doing. Okay. He really hasn't. He's had 4 attempts. The way he took off Kinski, that treatment there, it looks like he's lost the players. Reports by Matt Law, reports by The Athletic show that he's lost the changing room. He's lost every single player in that short period of time. He's been here for not even a single month. So, candidate number 1, most likely to replace Igor Tudor. Who would have believed this at the start of the season? Maybe even midway through the season in maybe December, January. Sean Dyche. Sean Dyche could be the man to save Tottenham Hotspur from relegation. And out of the current market, he possesses the highest competence to deal with Spurs' current woes and help them either in the short term or the long term. So there is that possibility of desperation for Tottenham to offer him a long-term deal. Now, the 52-year-old, did I just say 25-year-old? The 52-year-old has managed to survive relegation on multiple occasions with Burnley at his 9.5 years there. Also helping Everton avoid that situation, if I'm not wrong, 4 years ago. To add, if we are to go down, he has managed promotion twice in a row. So there is that competence that no one on this market holds like he does. His CV is by far the highest quality of the possible candidates to come in. Dyche is known for his ability to coordinate and navigate teams to a victory, installing belief in players, and although he does rule with an iron fist, it's not the same iron fist as Igor Tudor. And with experience in his footballing aspect, added onto his experience in such situations, added onto the fact he is the most active manager out of all the possible candidates today that we'll be discussing, makes him, I hate to say it, the perfect option for Tottenham Hotspur to turn to. Insane. So, furthermore, there would be extra motivation there because with his Premier League match, possibly his debut being against Nottingham Forest, the team that sacked him 2 months ago, in a 6-pointer. Who knows the club more inside out than Sean Dyche? Maybe Ange Postecoglou, but that looks very unlikely to happen. Sean Dyche would have extra motivation. An interesting fact, if he was somehow to come in and make Tottenham survive and Nuno Espirito Santo managed West Ham to get out the relegation zone, Nottingham Forest would be relegated by their 2 former managers they had sacked this season. Balloon galore. Let's go. So, that being said, interestingly, the issues with Dyche being uninterested in any short-term project look like he's more likely to reject us. So unless we offer him a crazy bonus for keeping us up, because he'll be in charge for just 8 games, it looks unlikely for him to arrive in the short term. Do you want him arriving in the long term and, postponing that Mauricio Pochettino appointment? It's very much a difficult situation right now. But he would be my go-to candidate. I don't agree with people claiming that it would be a bad appointment. This is the perfect appointment right now in the situation Tottenham Hotspur find themselves in. Moving on to number 2, and that is Ryan Mason. Could he make a hat-trick this time round? Because he's already been Tottenham Hotspur's caretaker, or interim, can we call it, twice. First time in 2021, where he even took on the final of the Carabao Cup against Manchester City. And secondly round, as I've already mentioned in this video, in 2023, after taking over from Christian Stellini. And his record is actually not that bad with his percentage of win rate. So, as an unattractive appointment this sounds, I completely understand that Tottenham Hotspur fans might be looking at it and going, this is absolutely bonkers to bring him in and save the sinking ship, because he has never been in this situation. Now, although he's never been in a relegation fight before, either as player or manager, he has managed West Bromwich Albion this season, meaning, again, from the pool of candidates you want to bring in that are somehow affiliated with the Premier League, he has the most expertise in this. And he has the closest connection as well with Tottenham Hotspur and the players. He was part of Ange Postecoglou's coaching staff, we have to remember that, so he knows the players more than any other candidate I will be mentioning today. That could mean Tottenham Hotspur are likely looking at him. The issue is that he was, manager of West Bromwich this season, sacked in January after failing to win 10 games in a row. I know that West Bromwich had absolutely insane struggles away from home. I think they had 8 games where they had failed to win away from home. However, since his departure, West Bromwich Albion have gone another 10 games without a victory. So was he really the problem there? He was an exciting appointment, had a great start to the season, but has absolutely faded there with West Bromwich. Another interesting fact to put out for you, if Ryan Mason is appointed and he brings us down and West Bromwich go down, he will be the first manager in history to bring down a team in 2 separate divisions, being Championship and Premier League, in 1 season. Now, that would be an absolutely devastating statistic or record, shall we say, on your resume. However, this would definitely heighten survival chances away from Igor Tudor, and I have put him second for that reason. Thirdly, that no one has spoken about at all in social media or on panels is Chris Hughton. Chris Hughton is a former Tottenham Hotspur player who has played as left-back in 297 occasions. And Spurs have been crying for an experienced left-back to arrive in the club, especially in January with Andy Robertson failing to come through, with Destiny Nogu still experiencing continued injury issues. They might potentially look in that direction with the ex-Tottenham Hotspur player Chris Hughton. And although it wouldn't solve the problems in that area of the field, it would solve problems across the pitch, definitely. Now, Houghton has been actively seeking another managerial role, although he was looking at international jobs. He was close to being appointed Zimbabwe head coach in November. Yes, it doesn't sound like, oh, you're going from Zimbabwe to Tottenham Hotspur. Listen, calm down. After his role in 2024 for Ghana, he has been the third most active out of the options available. It's as simple as that. If you think you're going to find a manager that is more experienced right now with this modern changing game, you are wrong. And Chris Hughton is most notorious for his spells at Newcastle and Brighton because he had managed promotions on both occasions. So again, there's that opportunity to give him either a short-term deal or a long-term deal to try and get us back into the Premier League if he wasn't able, to stir this sinking ship. And the Irishman has had spells inside Spurs, in the academy with coaching role there. And with his calm demeanour, maybe he is that answer that Tottenham Hotspur are looking for right now. It wouldn't be a bad shout. Chris Hughton is more than equipped. Last Premier League experience coming in 2020, not that long ago. So there is a possibility to look at him as well, and he hasn't been mentioned by media. I think Matt Law mentioned him a few days back, so finally someone who has seen that, yes, this manager is also available. Now coming on to another manager who is, these are for me the most unlikely managers to come in, but let's go through them together. Number 1, or out of this list, number 4, Tim Sherwood. The reason I say unlikely is because of the changing modern game of the Premier League, the competence there. He knows, out of the current managers I've mentioned, the least about opposition in the Premier League. And yes, he is a pundit on Sky Sports, I understand that. But it's not the same thing being a pundit and actually being in the dugout, facing opposition. His last role came in 2015, where he actually did something Tottenham Hotspur fans really need right now, and that is to help Aston Villa escape relegation. However, did you hear the year I just said, 2015? That is 11 years ago from now. 11. He has not managed in 11 years. And although at Tottenham Hotspur he has already managed before, he holds the highest win percentage record. And Tottenham Hotspur need desperately wins right now. So it makes sense in that sense. It makes sense in a sense. Let's go. It makes sense in the fact that he has already helped Aston Villa survive relegation before. So he is equipped in that apartment of, we are in a dogfight, let's go. He has already said how he would do it at Sky Sports, how he would come in and change. Do you want to hear his win percentage? 59%. That is 2% more than Antonio Conte, and that's 5% more than Mauricio Pochettino. And I absolutely just aura mastered that balloons situation right there. Absolutely insane. Right, the biggest disadvantage, like I mentioned, is his lack of experience in the modern game, in the changing game. Such a gamble. If that goes wrong, that could be seen as tragic for the Spurs board. Therefore, I believe it's very unlikely. Another name that's been chucked around by different pundits, by different fans, is Harry Redknapp, 79-year-old who's currently focused on Cheltenham and his horse winning the race. That's how bad it's got. Not that I'm attacking Harry Redknapp. I think he is an absolute legend of the club. However, again, if you think 11 years of not coaching is a long time, well, Harry Redknapp is in that same boat. And plus, he's 79 years of age. He's been completely away from the footballing aspect. He hasn't been on any punditry. Yes, sometimes he pops up on TalkSport and gives some messages there. But the reason I believe this is an unlikely appointment is because he went yesterday on TalkSport and actually had discussed. He had a phone call with Daniel Levy, the Tottenham Hotspur former chairman, who claimed he would have actually appointed Harry Redknapp if he was still at the club last week. And with such comments exposing the current board and their incompetence and exposing Daniel Levy's, situation of being forced out, that's what Harry Redknapp said in the TalkSport interview. It would be seen as impossible business where arrogance would block that possibility. And it's a huge shame because Harry Redknapp would definitely galvanise the fans. He would definitely unite them ahead of the massive fixture next Sunday. Increasing belief of surviving the drop. However, he had failed to do that at QPR. I understand QPR and Tottenham Hotspur are not the same, and there are absolutely different players in the QPR boat than there are in the Tottenham Hotspur boat in terms of talent and experience. But, I think it's extremely unlikely. And other, managerial shouts that are extremely unlikely. One that I haven't mentioned, that if you have been looking into this situation, you'll be like, why have you not mentioned him yet? And that is, drumroll, Robbie Keane. Robbie Keane is doing a fantastic job at Ferencváros in Budapest. However, I have not mentioned him for a reason. These managers that I will mention now are extremely unlikely to enter, but could. There is a very slight possibility. The reason Robbie Keane is extremely unlikely is because he sits top of the league in Hungary right now. The league there is called Nemzeti Bajnokság. And he is drawing on points with second. He is currently in the Europa League after beating Braga. So Ferencváros could be in the quarterfinals of the Europa League come next week. Why on earth would he leave that to go for a short-term role? So unless you want him in, you have to offer him a long-term deal. And again, Pochettino becomes available in the summer, has pretty much indicated that he's willing to come back. Why would you risk not waiting for Pochettino now? Yes, we need to save ourselves from relegation, but Robbie Keane is not the answer, because he would not take an 8-game stint to throw away the league where you are top, joint top, because level 1 points. The only reason they are top of the league is because of goal difference. You're so close to being in the quarterfinals of the Europa League with Ferencváros. Something Ferencváros have failed to do for over a decade. You are absolutely blowing away statistically. You are absolutely building your career, and you would throw that away to risk getting relegated? Impossible. I don't believe that happening. I really don't. It would be a fantastic option. That would be my number one option, Robbie Keane, if we are speaking about August and Mauricio Pochettino rejects us. However, we are speaking about now. We need someone in for a dogfight. Robbie Keane? No chance. No chance. Other names who have just dropped themselves in: Glenn Hoddle, Jurgen Klinsmann, Gus Poyet, who is currently the manager of Uruguay, so a sort of reunion between Bentancur and himself. I don't believe none of these mentioned would come in. The only, realistic option of Jurgen Klinsmann or Glenn Hoddle coming in is if they bring along the likes of Harry Redknapp and Tim Sherwood. Feels extremely unlikely. Another option, slightly more likely, is Jermaine Defoe. Had worked at Spurs Academy, was under 18 coach there, has been a caretaker for Rangers in 2021. Could his passion for the club with some prerequisites on his CV attract the eyes of Lang and Vinay Venkatesham and bring him in? Seems like a viable option to me. However, the list of candidates I had mentioned before in this video are way more likely to enter. So, Tottenham Hotspur fans, let me know in the comments who you would bring in. Let me know who you would want. Thank you so much for sticking around. Thank you so much for watching. It means an absolute pleasure to me. Igor Tudor will have his press conference today at 1:30. I believe this will be his last press conference as Tottenham Hotspur manager. I really do. I cannot see him surpassing Sunday. I cannot see him being in a job next week. So let me know in the comments who you think can save this sinking ship in the final 8 games that Tottenham Hotspur will have remaining after Liverpool. Thank you so much. Have a splendid weekend. Let's hope Tottenham Hotspur can somehow miraculously turn this season around, already starting this weekend. Come on, you Spurs. Like and subscribe. See you later.